All right. Well, this morning we're here with Kendall Corkle, and she has a great story I want to share with you. So, a little bit of an intro. Kendall and I met years ago. She actually was looking at being a nanny for my son, and her resume was just fantastic. So, that's what drew me to her. She's gone on to some really great things in life, including finishing. I think you went to University of Iowa, right, for your undergrad, and now you're in Michigan for law school. So let's just do a kind of get started with what made you think, hey, I think I want to be a lawyer. How did that start?
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to be a lawyer from a young age. And I think I knew that based on my personality.
Mm.
So I was always, I don't want to say argumentative, but a little bit stubborn and liked to, drive a point home and always was challenging things and liked to think very logically about things. And so I guess if you asked anyone that knew me growing up, they probably wouldn't be surprised that I'm becoming a lawyer just because it was my personality. And along with that, I also really loved to write growing up. I for a period of time I wanted to be a writer, but then I learned that lawyers actually write a lot in their career, and writing, at least as a litigator, is primarily what I do. And so putting those two things together, my writing skills and then also my personality type and being a logical thinker and intellectually curious, it just kind of made sense for me to be a lawyer.
Yeah, I didn't realize that lawyers wrote as much, I guess. I've been around the law field most of my life, but mostly what I see is, they hand off their work to their secretary. So I didn't really understand that they write as much. Can you kind of describe what it is that you're writing?
Sure. So, yeah, a lot of what you see on TV and stuff is lawyers getting up and arguing in court, or like you said, handing things off to their secretaries to be filed or whatever. But at least for me, I am going to be a litigator. So that means I'm going to be being on one side when somebody sues somebody else, and that means going to court as well. But a lot of advocacy and legal arguments are made through writing. And so when you're in court, you're writing briefs for the court, and those are much longer than any like oral argument that you might go and do. So with the exception of that being like a trial, a lot of times you're just writing briefs and writing memos and researching legal issues and then summing them up through written words. So, like I said, a lot of what I do, especially in law school, and especially what I'll do as a junior lawyer, will be writing. And you write things to help out the senior lawyers learn about an issue.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Well, one thing I've noticed about you is that you're so focused on this. So that makes sense because you probably have always wanted to be a lawyer, or like you said, it's sort of been in your genes since you were small. For folks that are watching this, part of the audience for this, they could be maybe students in high school that are preparing for what they want to do in college. It could also be folks that are maybe new to the country that are thinking, what in the world is, what are my career opportunities? Perhaps in the country that they were in before, they didn't have an opportunity to really think big, like maybe I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or something. Or it could be some of our students could also be adults that are looking for a career change. So I think your story is really good because you are so focused and it seems to be really clear for you what you want to do in life. Maybe you can speak a little bit to that as far as, have you had other jobs in the past? Have you had things in life that has just really made this so clear for you that, yep, I'm going to be a lawyer? And because you're so driven and so focused, it just seems like, it's a wonderful thing to have. I see a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't know, I'll just go get a job. But you're so focused. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so I'm very lucky, and I'm lucky because I've always known what I wanted to do, and now that I'm here and I'm going to be a lawyer pretty soon, I feel like it's been the right choice, but I understand completely that that's not the norm. And what I tell people is that I always start with going back to why I decided to be a lawyer. What's your personality? And what personality traits do you have that will help you in a certain career type? And so I actually just kind of had this conversation with my fiance, who is changing his career a little bit. He originally wanted to be a doctor, and he went to undergrad for hard sciences, but then changed it up and decided to go into something completely different, which was finance. And so I had him take personality tests, and there's a few well-known ones like the Myers-Briggs, I think it's called. So I took that in high school, and it kind of it's a really long exam, but it tells you like what your personality type is and what can make you happy. And I think it even gives like career suggestions maybe. And then the more recent one I took is called 16 Personalities. And it's free. It's online. You can go, and it asks you, it's shorter than the Myers-Briggs. It takes probably 15 or 20 minutes to do, but it gives you your personality type. And as the name indicates, there's like 16 different combinations. So when I took it, I got logistician, which makes sense because I'm going to be a lawyer, and it's all about logic. But that also gives you a lot of different career suggestions or areas of focus. And so that's, to me, is always the starting point, is narrowing it down to what's your personality type, because not every career suits every personality type. Beyond that, I think just talking to different people and like what these students are doing now, what you're doing now, watching these videos about people in different career paths is a great thing to do, because you don't really know what a lawyer does or what a doctor does. I mean, you might know a little bit from the outside, but until you actually talk to that person or hear what they do, you might not know what their day-to-day life is like. And so I would say talking to people, career counselors can be a really helpful tool. I mean, I know in high school, I had it was like a counselor who helps you choose your courses, but also helps you decide like where to go to college and stuff like that. So that was a really great resource for me in deciding what I wanted to do before law school. And then on to undergrad, I had a counselor in my major who helped me prepare for law school and talked to me about, what types of law you can practice, stuff like that. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's kind of a good segue into what is it that you've done to help you get to where you are. So if somebody's watching this and they're like, yeah, I think I want to be a lawyer, what are some good steps? Have you done internships or job shadowing? What is it that you've done?
Yeah, so the first step was to decide my undergraduate major, and because I knew going into undergrad that I wanted to go to law school. And you don't have to major in anything specific to go to law school. So you can major in absolutely anything and still go to law school. But a lot of people who become lawyers major in social sciences. But like I said, that varies completely. And a lot of people also major in hard sciences like chemistry and biology, and they become IP attorneys. So that's a really thriving field right now. And so I think, as far as choosing an undergraduate major, choose what you are most interested in, because if you decide to become a lawyer, you can have any major. The second thing was I did seek out legal internships while I was in undergrad. So like you said, I went to the University of Iowa, and there was a market for, at like a big university, for like people from all different countries to work in their hospitals. And so what I did was I got into the legal side of that, the immigration law, for them to be able to come and get a visa to work at University of Iowa. And so, I wasn't obviously doing any of the actual legal work. I was just an administrative assistant, but being able to see people practicing law was really helpful, and to talk to them. And I ultimately decided not to go into immigration law, but it was still really helpful. I mean, if you can get any sort of legal internship, if there's a law firm in your town, I would encourage you to reach out to them and see if they're hiring, even if it's unpaid or not, if they're hiring people to just work on filing or anything like that, because then you get inside and you see what they actually do and you see whether it's something you're interested in. And so I did that for a couple years in undergrad, and that's kind of what made me solidify that I wanted to go to law school. And then while I've been in law school, I've done some legal internships every summer as well.
Okay. Well, how do you go about finding those internships? I think the one that you recently did, it's not in your town. So do you just find them through your school? Is there an online board, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I would say mostly through my school.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of law schools, by the time you're in law school, employers will come to you and interview you at your school, which is nice. But before that point, I would just talk to my career counselors, and they can be a super helpful resource for just pointing you in the right direction. A Google search can only do so much, but they can kind of focus you on, oh, well, there's this internship available at the university. And I think I got my first legal internship through my career counselor telling me about it, which was nice.
Good. So going back to you again specifically, is there a certain type of law that you're interested in?
Yeah, so like I said, I want to do litigation. There's also a whole nother sector of law, which is transactional. And so you never see the inside of a courtroom, you're just doing transactions. So once I focused on litigation, I want to do complex commercial litigation, which is basically representing businesses when they are sued for any number of reasons. And so it's in the business private sector side of it. And I guess I narrowed that down primarily based on my internship, because that's the type of internship I was hired into, but I really enjoyed it. And I liked representing big companies and working with their in-house legal team and things like that. And the issues I get to work on are very complex and very nuanced. And so I'm very intellectually curious, and I like learning something new every day. And so that's kind of how I focused on the type of law I wanted to practice.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So is that also called corporate law?
So kind of, it's like corporate litigation, because
Okay.
corporate law is kind of an umbrella term for just all private sector practice. If that,
Okay.
but
Mhm.
yeah, it is a type of corporate law.
Okay. Okay. So my experience with that has been, my mom works in the corporate law area. She's been there 40 something years. And so I've been in there. I've done, I've had part-time jobs in there as well. So I've kind of seen the inside workings of the law firm, and it is different than what you expect to see maybe on TV, because it's, they're not handling murder cases
Yeah,
or drunk driving cases. It's this different type of law, just basically about, business and corporations, and a lot of, I guess, contracts and legal treaties and things like that.
definitely. And I think when you're working in the corporate sector, it's not so cutthroat as maybe like a murder trial or something like that, because a lot of times you're working on deals as well. So you want to make a deal with the other side, or you want to settle a case rather than, always fighting at each other. And so I like that aspect of it too, is being able to work with maybe another side to reach a result that's beneficial for both sides.
Wonderful. All right, just a couple more questions. So where do we go from here? What is it that you are looking forward to in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Sure. So I have 1 year left of law school, and
Awesome.
so I've actually really enjoyed law school. I attended the University of Michigan, or I attend the University of Michigan, and it's a lot of fun up here. So I mean, we work hard and we study, and all the professors are really great. I've become, friends with them, but at the same time, it's just a lot of fun, kind of. I mean, it's a big university. It's like undergrad. We get to go to football games. And so I'm really looking forward to having 1 more year of that before I, enter the workforce. And then after that, I'm actually going back to Chicago to work at the firm I interned at. So I'll be a full-time attorney there. And I will take the bar exam after law school. So hopefully that goes well. And then as far as beyond that, I hope to, make it through that entry level position and establish myself as a really talented attorney, and, have partners who want to work with me and who want to support my career development. And Chicago's a huge market. And so I intend to network a lot, because I think one of the most important things you can do for your career is network. Because every single attorney I've talked to who is, much more senior than me has said they were very surprised at where their career took them. And so even though I'll be a lawyer, it's still really unpredictable where I'll be in, 10, 20 years, because legal careers, it really can take you anywhere, And so I think one of the most important things, like I said, is building your network, because you never know who is going to call you up and say, hey, there's this really great opportunity and I think you'd be perfect for it. And so I'm really looking forward to having not only all of my friends who are alumni that will be in Chicago with me, but also just a ton of different opportunities to meet people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see great things happening for you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, before we close, our audience, you kind of know the purpose of these videos. So is there anything else that you might want to share, any wisdom that you have as a young woman going through law school, or just even with the immigration piece that you've picked up on, anything that you can think of? Because I feel like you have been exactly where my students are going to be, sitting there thinking, okay, what do I do for college? Where do I go? How do I prepare for a better future? Any wisdom you want to share?
Sure. So I would say the first piece of advice I have is to just stick with your gut. And it kind of sounds cheesy, but I grew up, I'm a first generation college student, and I didn't know any attorneys, and I didn't have anyone in my family who was an attorney. And so when I said I wanted to be an attorney, some people will be like, why, or question it, or try and make you take an easier path or something like that. And I would just say, like, do what your gut is telling you to do, even if it might seem hard, or it might seem like, it's 7 years away because you have to go to law school. I mean, if it's what you want to do, I would stick to it and seek advice from those who are supportive of you. And then my second piece of advice is to use your background to your advantage. So I entered the legal profession, as a young woman from, not the same socioeconomic background as everyone else. It's a very traditional career. It's still very dominated by white men. And so I guess use your background, because it can be a really big asset when you're bringing a different viewpoint to the table. That can be invaluable, because when you come from a diverse background, you have a different perspective than everyone else sitting at that table. And so you might bring things that they never thought of. And that can be a very valuable tool. And they might bring you to the table more often, because they say, this girl thinks about things in a different way, and we need her on this case. And so I would say, even though it might be intimidating to enter into a sector where you're not the majority and you're from a different background, you don't know any lawyers. It's very scary to not know what you're doing and to feel like you don't fit in, but, and that's often called like imposter syndrome, but don't let that discourage you from speaking out and saying, well, what about this? Or, I've seen this in my life. And people will be very receptive to that, because I think the legal profession and just the entire market in general is changing and becoming more diverse, and becoming adapting to young professionals and our generation. And so don't be afraid to speak your mind and to bring in your own background and experiences, because that will really help you and make you an asset and make you stand out from everybody else.
That's great. Well, thanks so much.
Of course.
All right. Well, thanks again for the interview and for your time. It's been great chatting with you. Let me go ahead and hit stop.